Hello, everyone, and a warm welcome back to all of you for our final session of today. Audience, you know how this goes. We have any questions, please put them down in the Q&A box or in the chat box. Your feedback poll will be given to you at the end of the session. Please stay tuned right to the end for that. This is being recorded. You have a replay at your disposal when you require one. So here we are. Let's dive in. Let's welcome Paul Falcone. Paul is a highly accomplished leader with deep expertise across industries, and he's the principal of Paul Falcone Workplace Leadership Consulting, LLC, specializing in management training, executive coaching, and HR advisory services. Formerly the CHRO of Nickelodeon, he has held senior HR roles at Paramount Pictures, Time Warner, and City of Hope, with expertise across entertainment, healthcare, and finance. An accomplished author, Paul has written best-selling books published by HarperCollins and SHRM, and rated almost #1 on Amazon in HR and business categories. They're translated into multiple languages as well. He's a certified executive coach, a long-term columnist from SHRM.org, and an important faculty member at UCLA Extension. Paul is also a sought-after keynote speaker and a trainer on talent management and leadership development. Welcome, Paul, once again. The floor is all yours.
Thank you, Anjali. What a very nice introduction. I appreciate it. So we are on day 3 in session 3 of day 3, and you made it. It's wonderful, everybody. Welcome. We'll have some fun in this last session. It's important, but it's fun. And the topic that we chose is this idea of inspirational leadership. And how do you become someone's favorite boss? And how do you pay things forward, which is the expression I always use for giving back what you're best at, helping to grow other people. But this isn't just for you. This is also for the leaders in your organization. A lot of times the managers move into management without much training, right? That happens all over the world. And you're a great individual contributor. And then congratulations, you have 4 people who report to you. Call me if you need anything. And they're on their own. And I think we've lost the ability to sit around the campfire and pass wisdom from the elders down to the younger generation. We need to help build those managers. We need to give them tools. It needs to be practical. They need to feel comfortable with it. And the idea for me is when you're looking at where is their success, where is your success, and how do you scale your career, how do you grow? It's through people. Unfortunately, there are people out there who grow in their careers despite people. Despite people is not the right answer. It's through people. They're always going to do better when they can become better leaders. It's one thing to manage an issue, manage a topic, manage a person. It's another thing to lead. Leadership is inspirational. Even people who don't necessarily manage anyone, they may be individual contributors, but they can still be great leaders. So this is about building leadership muscle. This is about raising awareness. It's about emotional intelligence, right? This idea of, well, your IQ, your intelligence quotient, it's pretty much the same when you're born as it is for the rest of your life. Your EQ, your emotional quotient, your emotional intelligence is like a muscle. You can expand it, you can build it, you can strengthen it. So we're going to talk about how to incorporate some of those things right into your daily leadership practices, which I think is important. My background, as Anjali was saying, was I've worked for about 35 years in healthcare, biotech. I've worked in entertainment. I have worked in financial services. And I've done it across different industries because it always informed my writing. I was a columnist for SHRM for 20 years, the Society for Human Resource Management. I've written 17 books. And so while I was doing my HR practice by day, I was writing about it at night. And I was fortunate that the companies where I've worked supported my writing. So that's my background right there. I sit on the board of directors for the American Management Association. I've taught at UCLA Extension in their School of Business Management for years. And I've had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm fortunate at this point. About 2 years ago, I decided to launch my own consulting firm. So these days I do management training just like this, and keynote speaking and executive coaching. So that's my background, everyone. Now, the books that people often associate me with are these. These came out, these were my first ones. And the one to the far right that you're going to see there in orange, it's one over from the far right. It's called 101 Tough Conversations to Have with Employees. That's pretty much the one that most people know me for, because it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And we're going to talk on the session about what's important out there to the younger generations, to the Gen Y millennials, the 45 and under crowd, to the Gen Z Zoomers, the 25 and under crowd. They now make up close to 50% of the workforce. But in the United States and in other countries, the baby boom, the generation that came after World War II, they're retiring. They've only got about 5 years left. By 2029, they will be gone. And so the reality is, not that we don't care for them, we do. We worry about them. I'm a baby boomer. I wanted many of the things we're going to talk about in today's workshop. But the reality is, it's smart for us to look towards the future. And this is these are the two generations, the Y millennials, the Z Zoomers. These are the ones that are going to be really growing exponentially in your workplace and moving into senior executive leadership roles. Now, 2 years ago, when I started my own consulting firm, HarperCollins, my publisher, with the American Management Association, created something called the Paul Falcone Workplace Leadership Series. I was really honored that they would use my name in the title. I thought that was really cool. But the scoop was, I always wanted to write these books as well. On the far left, that workplace ethics is about managerial ethics and employee relations. I've taught that class for years at UCLA. They never had a book, so I wrote a book on it. Now, what we're going to talk about today is over on the far side, the right. You'll see where it says leadership offense and leadership defense. Those are just sports metaphors. But leadership offense is growing your people, motivating, developing, coaching. Leadership defense is accountability, employment law, knowing how to discipline, knowing how to structure a termination. That's you have to know both. It can't all be carrot. It also has to be stick, as the expression goes. The carrot makes them happy, it motivates them, but the stick is there. It does need to have consequences. And you have to have both as a leader. My newest books that just came out are part of the First Time Manager series. And the First Time Manager HR on the right just came out about 3 months ago, excuse me. The one on the left, the First Time Manager Leading Through Crisis, came out late last year. So these are my newest books. But just so you know my background, that's kind of what my writing is all about. In terms of today, I want to talk about simple things. When you're in a leadership capacity, if you're human resources, for example, if you're the business owner, whatever it happens to be, hold meetings with your managers, your frontline operational leaders, because many of them don't feel very secure in what they're doing. And they tell themselves stories. They make assumptions about, well, to be an effective manager, you have to be feared. No, you don't. I worked for someone one time who made me very, very frightened. I couldn't walk and talk and chew gum at the same time. I was always afraid of making a mistake. You're not going to get the best out of people when they're afraid. What you want to do is build their self-confidence. Tell your managers, write that on a sticky pad. Just write that on a notepad. How do I build my people's self-confidence? Because when people feel like they've got a strong relationship with their boss trusts them, their boss respects them, their boss likes them, they thrive. And all the things we're going to see in all of these slides, CEOs are looking for innovation. They're looking for creativity. That doesn't come from employees who are afraid. That comes from employees who feel like they can take safe risks. So that's just, again, a quick flashpoint. Another flashpoint is that first bullet. How do you become someone's favorite boss? How do you become someone's most inspirational leader? We're going to talk about that. And then we'll get into what I call the big three of leadership, communication, and team building. Because a lot of times your managers aren't taught that. Even if they have an MBA, they don't teach this in MBA school. They teach organizational theory, design, organizational effectiveness. They don't teach what I call leadership in the trenches. They don't teach people how to become great leaders. If in a way my books did anything, it's kind of filling in that gap, right? Teaching them the how. They know what to do. They just don't know how to do it. So help them with the words. Help them understand how to think about it and approach it and what to expect to hear back from an employee once they say something. But again, if they're comfortable saying something, they'll talk about it. If they're not comfortable, they are going to look the other way, sweep it under the rug, hope it fixes itself, and then they never address it. And then some proverbial straw breaks the camel's back, and boom, the whole thing blows up. And then they come running into my office in human resources and they want the person fired. And now I'm the bad guy. How did I get to be the bad guy? This isn't my fault. You didn't document anything. We can't just terminate the person. See, so that's the logic that goes on here. And so when I would go into companies, when I go into a new company, I always did management training because I wanted them to understand how I look at things. They have an HR hat that they have to wear no matter what discipline they're in. So to the degree that I can help them build muscle in that HR leadership space, it's only going to make my life easier. And it's going to make my frontline operational leaders feel more self-confident. And that's what my goal has always been. We'll talk about the leader as coach model, and we'll talk about next steps in a new way forward. So anyway, it'll be a fun session, and I'm ready to jump in. If anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Anjali will let me know, or excuse me, Anjali will let me know if anything changes and I need to answer any questions. Now, the first thing I would say is this. This is all about a change in mindset. Okay, the idea, everybody, is we're in a post-COVID reintegration phase, which is probably going to last about 5 years. I say 2022 to 2027. But we are also at a situation where AI is coming onto the scene. There's constant crisis and disruption in so many ways. You need managers that are very agile, managers that can deal with change. So some of the things we want to make sure is that, are we giving real-time feedback to our employees? Are we recognizing them for a job well done? Do we know how to coach and motivate? What about remote leadership, managing the unseen? Do we know how to do that? Is that different? And how do you create a diverse and inclusive workforce so that people feel like they can do their best work every day with peace of mind, regardless of their background? So again, remember we talked about the little simple things. One thing, help them build their self-confidence. That's good. One thing, how do you become someone's favorite boss? Here's another one. I want to make sure that you can do your very best work every day with peace of mind. It's a very, very important thing to tell your employees or to ask them, are you able to do your very best work every day with peace of mind? It's a great question. You will find out some really interesting things when you ask that question. Ask of it individually of the people who report to you, and then ask that question of your team afterwards and see where we're at. Hear what that feedback is. A lot of times managers are surprised to find out on some kind of climate survey that their employees don't like them, or in an exit interview that, boy, this person wasn't happy. I didn't even know it. It's because they're not asking, or at least they're not asking in a way that makes it safe for people to make themselves vulnerable. Healthy vulnerability is important in all relationships. Okay. Accountability is key. Trust, open communication, transparency. There's no drama. I don't do drama in my world, and that's important. We're going to talk about how to explain that to your employees as well in a few minutes. But I'm going to do an exercise now that I do with all my classes at UCLA. I'm not going to go through it live because we don't have the time. But what I normally do is I say to the class, describe the best boss or the most inspirational manager you've ever had. Don't tell me who it is. Don't tell me where. Just tell me what made that person the best boss you've ever had. And up go the hands. And the first hand says, I had a boss who really respected me and acknowledged me and made me feel like my opinion was really, really important. Okay, good. Next student. I had a boss who challenged me to do things I didn't think I was even ready for. She seemed to have more faith in me than I had in myself. It was wonderful. Good. Next student. I had a boss who really valued education. It's because of him I went back and got my university degree. Good. Now my question is this. Are you describing that person's beingness or their doingness? In other words, are you describing their beingness, who they are, or are you describing their doingness, what they did? And I know the answer is both, but what's the primary driver? And usually the students raise their hands and they say, what he did, what she did. I said, okay, tell me about that. No, well, she did this and he did that. And it almost always happens that someone in the back of the room says, wait a second, I think it's who they were. It's who they were that made me enjoy working for them so much. And it's who they were that triggered what they did. And that comes up in almost every setting. I'd be interested to find out if you have that same result. Because the reality is, and let me go to this slide for just a minute, the next slide, beingness is more important than doing this. Who you are is critical. That's what people see. Look at the second bullet. When people describe their favorite boss, it's that individual's character and their caring that count. We know the term authenticity, right? The character, it's their trust, their respect, the way they made you feel. Leadership is an emotional connection. It's not a cognitive connection. It's an emotional connection. When I say I love my boss, I'll do anything for my boss. That means I'll give discretionary effort, not because I have to, but because I want to. And we have to see it that way. And in that, I want everyone to like collectively sigh, just let out some air. We can relax. We're doing all the time. Great leadership is just about being. It's your caring. That's what matters. That's what makes someone a favorite boss. It makes someone a great friend, child, parent, sibling, but certainly boss in the workplace too. People want to know that they work for a management team that cares about them personally. So just talk to your managers, let them reflect, right? This is executive coaching 101. Help your managers feel this level of introspection, career introspection. Am I being the best boss that I can be? Am I helping my people find ways to motivate themselves? Am I able to help my people feel confident that they can excel while working under my leadership? These are the questions that an executive coach is going to ask. And just listen to what their responses are. And sometimes it's okay just to listen to the silence because they're hard questions. They're not easy questions to answer, but you want them reflecting on themselves and their leadership brand. That's what's really important. Maya Angelou is an American poet. And she said in that second bullet, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that speaks to the emotional connection. If I run into someone who I managed 20 years ago, do they look the other way and walk in a different direction? Or they come up to me and give me a big hug? My claim to fame, and I've got a number of them. I've been really fortunate, you guys. I was really, but someone who I promoted to manager at Nickelodeon Animation is now the senior vice president of human resources at DreamWorks Animation. And I ran into her about a year ago. And she said, Paul Falcone, I still think WWPD. What would Paul do? You taught me so much. I could have never gotten to this stage in my career without having worked for you. That's why we're doing this. Yeah, we work for a paycheck and we get benefits. Your ability to touch people's lives is unparalleled when you're in a leadership capacity. Build their careers. It's a beautiful thing. And when you think of it from that standpoint, there's a givingness to it. It's not a taking. There's an article I published for SHRM, for HR Magazine, called How to Be a Favorite Boss. The link is right there. If any of you want to follow up with that, feel free. I see I got a couple of hearts on that one. Good. I'm glad that registered. That's important. Now, here's another thing, you guys. Part 2 is on the big 3, leadership, communication, and team building. The first thing I say, the assumption, not everything that I say is going to fit for all of you or for the people that you train back at home. No one paradigm on leadership works in all environments, and I get that. But my thought too is that if you think about it, the universe knows you cannot give away anything you don't already have. So the degree that you can give good things away, it just brings it right back to you. Karma is real, right? We know this. And leadership falls under that category. So let's think about it, big picture, right? Take your people to the 30,000-foot view. We live in the weeds every day. We live and breathe in the weeds. But sometimes when we're in the weeds too much, we can't catch our air. We lose oxygen. We lose perspective. Talk to your employees about time to go up to the 30,000-foot view. And they're like, oh, are we doing that again, Paul? Yep, we're going to do that. Let's talk about big picture. Big picture, one of the things is, what is it that we know about millennials? And what is it we know about the Zoomers? They are the most studied generational cohorts in world history. Because we have universities and think tanks and McKinsey's and all these different companies, they keep studying this generation because it's the future of the workforce. I'm a baby boomer. It was a big generation, but nobody studied it because they didn't have time for that and they didn't have the infrastructure to do it. Since we know what these generations want, it would be smart for us as leaders to be in tune with this, right? These are our top 5 or 6, whatever. And different surveys will give you different priorities, but they're all basically around these. Number 1, they want career and professional development. That means when you talk to someone, don't make them feel judged. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? You always do. You never do that. Don't talk to people like that. A, it's disrespectful. B, it's not true. You're just exaggerating. And C, their body language is going to lock up. They're going to defend themselves. When they're in self-defense mode, they're not listening. They're blaming others. So that's not going to work. But we're going to give you an example in a minute of a conversation that you can have someone to tell them the same thing. You've got a bad attitude, but you're going to say it in a whole different way. So we'll get there in a second. Number two, they want a management team that cares about them personally. Well, again, what does that mean? If they feel like they trust their boss, they respect their boss, they like their boss, they're going to do wonderful things because it's safe to do so. They'll give discretionary effort, not because they have to, but because they want to. But those are the two most important things. They also want diversity of thoughts, ideas, and voices, work-life, family balance, control, equilibrium. They want corporate social responsibility, environmentalism, and sustainability. This is generally what you'll see on these surveys. But to the degree that you can link what your company is doing with any of these, you're going to be well ahead of the game. And make sure you advertise it. Make sure your employees understand what's being expected of them. Now, the other thing at the 30,000 view is, what are the CEOs looking for? There are global CEO outlook surveys. There are domestic outlook surveys. This one, if you look on the bottom right, is from KPMG, the consulting firm, with their CEO outlook survey. They want emotional intelligence and collaboration. Why? Because in an environment where you can't see people, you've got to make sure that there's trust and that there's respect. And in remote work environments, people can leave very easily and you don't even know. So again, what they realize coming through COVID is the relationship between the manager and the staff member is more critical than ever. For human resources, it means we have our seat at the table. They realize how important we are. That's great, but it took a once in a century pandemic for them to figure it out, but it's true, right? They want creativity and innovation, accountability, agility, right? The ability to change, effective leadership through crisis and disruption, what they call managing compound volatility. These are the trends. So again, do your managers align with these? And if CEOs are saying they want creativity and innovation as an example, or they want agility, do your managers' leadership styles reflect that so people can actually respond to that and deliver on those? So those are some of your questions, everybody. Now, when we get to leadership, what I'll tell you again is coaching and motivating is the new thing going forward. We don't want unilateral decision makers and disciplinarians. That's very 1980s. It's even 1970s. We don't want to do that anymore. But the idea of an achievement mindset is important. I talk to my employees about bullets versus commas. Hear me for a second. I tell my employees, I want you to think about your achievements and your accomplishments in terms of bullets that you can put on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile, on your bio, on your annual self-evaluation, if you do those. But think about those bullets. They're your goals. What do you want to put on those documents, your resume, your LinkedIn profile? How can I, as your manager, help you get there? That's a bullet mindset. Here's the difference between that and a comma mindset. A comma mindset says I do phones, comma, filing, comma, correspondence, comma. I don't care about that. That's your basic job description. That's fogging the mirror, as we say. That's just a minimum. I want to know, why is it a better company for your having done that? I want them to think in terms of achievements. In my department in HR, I always had what I called a quarterly achievement calendar. Quarterly achievement calendar. It's a spreadsheet on a share drive. It's very simple. But everyone got to put down what their major projects were that they were working on. And with a couple of columns, when it started, who are the key stakeholders, most importantly, when it's completed. And the thing that was nice about that was it took 10 minutes of their time out of the week just to give a quick update. Sometimes my boss couldn't meet with me and said, Paul, I don't have time to meet. I have to cancel. Could you send me that spreadsheet? Yep. So if my meeting with the CEO was Thursdays at 3, I would just tell my staff, by Thursday at noon, make sure you fill out that spreadsheet in case I need to send it to Bob, that kind of thing. But it was good because it gave us a chance to see what everyone was working on. So people didn't start to think, I'm the only one who does any work around here, right? So that's part of it. Part of it, though, is when they complete their goal, we highlight it in yellow and we celebrate that at the end of the week. And once that goal is complete, I cut it from the spreadsheet that's my active, and I put it under my completed goals tab, my worksheet, and boom, that goes in there. And when it comes time to do all my annual reviews, I've got a list of everyone's achievements and accomplishments because they're in charge of it, right? They're adults. I'm not going to do the work for them. But that's how you create an achievement mindset. You have to talk about it. What does it mean? For senior level managers, it means increasing revenue, decreasing expense. right? Increasing customer satisfaction. For a lower level, more junior employees, it means saving time. It means different things. What's your superpower? What can you give away that will make people feel better about our organization? How can you deliver better customer service, right? Why are we a better organization for your having worked here? But always have them think in terms of framing things in terms of their achievements. And finally, again, you'll see there in yellow on the right, make sure you can create an environment where people can do their best work every day with peace of mind. That's it, everybody. That's an important issue. It's an important topic. They'll share things that they normally won't when you ask them that question. They'll say, Paul, I normally wouldn't say this because I don't want to complain. But if you're asking, and now you start finding out what's really going on in your team, so it's a good way to do things. Anjali, was there a question that anyone had that they want to ask right now?
Not as yet. That
Okay.
question that has been put up is for the team. So yeah.
Good. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, next one. Leadership is about career scalability, right? We grow manager, director, vice president, senior vice president. But 20% of those in management wish that they could return to being an individual contributor. Isn't that funny? Because they can't. They won't take a cut in pay. They don't want to lose face and take a cut in job title and responsibility. So they stay in management, but they really wish they didn't have to do it that way. But I'll say at the bottom, leadership is the greatest gift the workplace offers because it allows you to touch other people's lives and build their careers. I want people to really hear that. I want them to think about it that way. It's a gift. It's an opportunity, unlike anything else in your career. So we'll talk about how do you get them there. So number one, there was a white paper written in 1970, now 54 years ago, by Professor Robert Greenleaf called The Servant Leader. You can get it on Amazon for $10. It's just a white paper. But what he said then is even more relevant today than it was back then. Servant leaders value people for who they are, not just what they can give the organization, right? There's that idea of my boss who cares about me. So they do not promote themselves, they put others first. This idea of selfless leadership. Servant leaders listen with their eyes and their hearts, in addition to their ears, because they care. They're known for a level of empathy. Trust and respect are hallmarks of a successful leadership, selfless leadership culture. And that's really the idea. I had written an article for SHRM again called Servant Leadership for a New Generation. You're more than welcome to click on that afterwards and download that. But again, these are the ideas, everyone. It's not that hard. We're making it harder on ourselves than we have to. With communication, real quick, recognition is the key. My wife has always been a teacher of little kids, and they would teach the teachers, catch your kids being good. Kids are going to vie for your attention as the teacher. If they have to do bad things to get your attention, they will, because they want your attention. But if you keep calling out the good things they're doing, they're going to keep repeating that. So recognition is critical. I've seen managers who say, I won't recognize my employees. It'll go straight to their head. They're going to want more money. Really? If I called you out in front of the whole team and I said, great job, I'm so proud of you. Tell us how you did that. We want to learn. The first thing you'd be thinking is you want a 10% raise. Well, no, not me, Paul, but other people might. Baloney. That's not true. You're the average bear, right? Would you want to work for you? That's your question. That's the first question I ask as an executive coach in a new relationship. Would you want to work for you? Be honest. And they look at me and they look down at their shoes and they look up to the far left. Yeah, I think so, Paul, but it's hard. I've got so many pressures. And this is where they go and they go right into excuse making and everything else. And I get it. I understand. They're human beings, no judgment. But you want them to raise awareness, career introspection. The other thing it says at the bottom, career and professional development relies on both recognition and real-time constructive feedback. They want to learn their craft, master their trade. That's when they say they want career and professional development. That means you as a manager have to give them that feedback. How you give it is important. So we talk about on the recognition side, catch people being good. Great catch, excellent suggestion, fantastic follow through with that customer. Do tell, how did you do that? Teach us. That kind of thing, it's exciting, gets people motivated. Number two, praise in public, censure in private. Call them out in public when it's deserved. I'm not saying call people out just for showing up. But when they do extraordinary things, achievements, extraordinary effort, call that out. That's a positive behavior. It doesn't happen enough. There are a lot of managers who philosophically think I'm not going to recognize anybody for anything. I just wouldn't want to work for them. If they're not fun, then that's not fun. It's okay to call people out for doing extraordinary things. Okay, next thought. When it comes to how do you give feedback? First of all, I'm going to say there's a rhythm to this, a cadence of how communication is supposed to work. I think weekly one-on-one meetings with your direct reports are critical, especially if they're remote. You've got to have that one-on-one time, even if just 30 minutes out of your week. Do that to the degree that you possibly can. Number two, I like to do weekly staff meetings. Business changes too quickly to not keep everyone aligned. And if people don't have updated information, they're going to make assumptions to fill in that gap. And as soon as they start assuming things, your alignment goes out the window because now they're all misaligned. So the idea is keep that conversation going. Number three, for me, quarterly development discussion meetings with my people. Annual reviews are not enough. People feel judged. People aren't happy. Managers hate giving them because they're potentially confrontational. It's too much drama there. Sit with your people once a quarter. That's healthy. Some people do it once a month. For me, that was always a little too much. It's up to you. But on a quarterly basis, we'll talk about that. I tell them, number one, you set the time on my calendar. Number two, you set the agenda for the meeting. My job is simply to listen and coach. Okay, but that's how I expect my employees to do things. They will do it. They will step up to that if you set that expectation. I've always told my employees, we do have an annual review process, but in my department, in my shop, we do it 4 times a year, not once. Okay, it's kind of broken down. The annual review happens on a quarterly basis. But I want to know how you're doing in terms of your performance. I want to know how you're doing in terms of your career and professional development. I want to know if there's any training that you need. I want to know if you have any suggestions for our team in terms of what we can do differently or how we can perform at a higher level. It's just one-on-one time to hear how you're doing and how I can help. People thrive under that. They don't even have to write anything down. Some will. Some come in with spreadsheets and Gantt charts and bells and whistles, letters of recommendation from customers. Fine. Let them motivate themselves if they want. Sometimes it's just a matter of sitting together and talking about how you're doing and what I can do to help. But it should not be an annual review happens once a year. That's silly. It doesn't make any sense. In a year, the mountains are grown in a year, the way business changes so quickly. Okay, so those are some of the things to talk about leading up to an annual review. In weekly staff meetings, make sure everyone is talking. These 2 slides here to talk about what are some, you share updates for the week, make sure it starts and ends on time, but ask each team member to provide an update on the status of their projects and their potential delays, areas where the team may need to pivot, where other people can help them. And if you do this with a remote team, I tell them, don't think that you get to do your little presentation and then start doing your texting. It's you stay focused for the entire meeting. I'm going to call on you if I think that you're not listening. So just so you know, you guys, you've been fairly warned. You got to listen to everybody. It's not just you do your presentation and then you zone out. Then you don't pay attention any further. So that's how I do it. I make it kind of fun, but I want them to know full engagement on those staff meetings. Okay, and then there's a little bit more here in terms of the second bullet. How do we track and codify and quantify our achievements? What can we celebrate from last week? Another one, are we cross-trained so we can pick up in someone's absence? Sarah, if you're out sick next week, who picks up HRIS and payroll, right? I don't want a single point of failure on my team where if one person is out, we're lost because that's the only person who knows how to do something. People want to learn. I mean, career and professional development means understanding more than just your discipline. It means understanding the broader sense. Now, I've always told my employees, I want you to be able to replace me at some point. Not right now, but at some point, I want you to understand what it looks like from my vantage point as a CHRO. And my job is to grow that sense of self-confidence in you and build that muscle so that you understand the broader picture, you guys. Yeah, I respect you all for the disciplines that you manage and master, but I want you all to understand how the full suite of HR services comes together. Okay. And then what else works for you? If we had time, we would talk more, but we're going to keep going because of the time limits. Now, these questions here are questions, this slide and the next slide, questions for the employees in their quarterly meetings, right? You're asking them to put the time on your calendar, set the agenda, but it's good for you to have some questions that you can ask if the conversation slows down, because sometimes the employees aren't quite sure where to go with it. Another thing you can do is take these 2 slides and just send them to your employees in advance and say, these are the kinds of questions I'm going to be asking you. But these, how are you measuring your achievements and accomplishments and turning them into bullets for your semi-annual and annual performance review? right? How do you feel you're doing performance-wise? Do you feel you're able to do your best work every day with peace of mind? What could we do differently to support you more? Look at the bottom from a coaching and mentoring standpoint. What can I just do to support you further in terms of your career and professional development? Look, we know that this is what they want from the surveys. Just make it part of your daily parlance. Make it part of your brand reputation. What do you feel is our team's highest priority? If you could change one thing about what we're doing as a team, how we're doing it, what would it be? I really want to pull that information. I never want someone to leave my department and feel like, boy, that Paul Falcone is just in it for Paul Falcone. All he cares about is what I can do for the company, never what the company can do for me. And you'll be surprised, if you're in human resources, we get that information a lot in exit interviews. The employee says, you can kill yourself around here. They'll never say thank you or great job. Make one mistake and they're all over you, right? It's this idea of managing by mistake. A lot of managers do that. Wrong. That's not where you want to be. You're always going to get a better ROI, return on investment. You'll always get a better ROI by managing people's strengths than trying to shore up their weaknesses. So focus on building that confidence in terms of where their strengths are. Yeah, you're going to have to address their weaknesses too, but that shouldn't be the only way you're known for managing and leading. In terms of listening, again, be careful about body language, emotion. Wait 2 seconds before responding to allow people to finish their thoughts. We don't get good grades in corporate America in terms of being good listeners. We're just not good at it. So it's just something that's a muscle we can build. In terms of the leader as coach model, again, there's that second question. Would you want to work for you? Or if the whole company followed your lead in terms of your conduct, your behavior, your role model leadership, if the whole company followed your lead, would you be happy with where you took it? Then just listen and see where they go with that. Who are you? Who do you choose to be? What do you want your leadership brand to be? How can I help you with that? These are good questions, you guys. And they work for me as an executive coach with a stranger, but they can work for your managers talking to their own employees, right? Coaching bases itself on the assumption that everyone can grow, that everyone has the potential to become something better, regardless of their point of departure. So it's not, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need anything. Yeah, you might need some stuff more than you're aware. The manager says, I've been doing this for 20 years. My immediate thought is you've only done it for 1 year. You just repeated it 20 times. Learn something, please, right? We get in that mode. A coaching culture focuses on selflessness, on otherness, and it's a growth mindset because it has that element of otherness, which is very in tune with emotional intelligence. It's helping your people grow. It's making it safe for them to make themselves vulnerable. That vulnerability piece is important. If you like TED Talks, one of the top 10 TED Talks of all times is on the importance of vulnerability. And it's by a professor, Brene Brown, Brown, from the University of Texas. Just type Professor Brown, vulnerability TED Talk, and it'll pop right up. But it's a good one to watch, and it's a good one for you to watch with your employees. In terms of real-time feedback, remember, it's not just recognition, it's real-time feedback. So allow me to share with you what worked for me when I was in your role. I have some thoughts I wanted to share about working with this particular client or this particular account, Paul, in terms of what might work best. Can I share? Sure. Paul, permission to share something that might be missing awareness, but that could potentially hold you back in your career if you don't get ahead of it. I want to share this with you. This is important. Can I talk with you about that? Okay. This is the way you give that feedback. Can I share with you what this looks like from my vantage point from time to time? May I make a few observations and suggestions? Let's do a debrief and a review. What could we do differently if we had the chance? What have you learned? How can we apply it differently in the future? What can the rest of the team learn from this? This is how the coach speaks. It's a different parlance, but it's not that hard. It's only on 2 slides. Give the slide to your managers. They will get better at this. The coaching construct. The next time you have a question like this, think of a couple of alternatives. Think them through and come to me with the best alternative so that we can kind of explore it together. The second bullet, when they come up to me and say, I don't know how to do that, I say, yeah, I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would your answer be? And they look at me like, oh, I don't know. Come on, Paul. It's like, yeah, no, I'm going to push them. I'm going to force. I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would your answer be? 90% of the time, they're going to give me the exact same answer I was going to give them. And 10% of the time when they're off a little bit, I'll just ask some qualifying questions and I'll get them to the point where they're giving me the answer I was going to give them anyway. So again, look at the third bullet. Schedule quarterly meetings on my calendar to discuss your progress towards your goals, your career and professional development needs, anything else that's important to you at that point. You set the time on my calendar, you set the agenda. My job is to listen and coach. It's a great kind of way to build muscle, build relationship, build your leadership brand. I'm going to skip this one for just a second. Look at this one. Final thought for me. On a back of a napkin or piece of paper. Remember we said in the beginning, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And the most important things you can usually explain in a simple piece of paper. When you're talking to someone who has a bad attitude, right? Top sales producer, but they're really hard to deal with. No one wants to deal with them. Sit with them and say, I want to do something. I want to talk to you about it. I'm going to draw a circle and I'm going to cut the circle in half. And in the top half of the circle, I'm going to write the word performance. And in the bottom half of the circle, I'm going to write the word conduct or behavior. Just hold this in your mind. I want to talk to you about something. You know, I wanted to meet with you privately to discuss something that I think is important to you career-wise. They say the most important decisions about your career will be made when you're not in the room, right? That's the same for you as it is for me, as it is for everybody else. There's something that may be missing awareness, Paul, that could potentially hold you back over the long term when you're not in that proverbial room to defend yourself, so to speak. And I wanted to talk to you about it because right now you're doing outstanding work at the top half of the circle. Your performance is stellar. It's great, but that only counts for half of your overall contribution to our organization or to any company. You're equally responsible for what I call your conduct, your behavior, how you're coming across to others, your reputation for building up those around you, for serving as a role model in the leadership and the communication space. That's where you may be falling short. And that's what could hold you back potentially. If I can make you as strong in the bottom half of the circle as you are in the top half of the circle, your career is going to go through the roof. But if you're only good in half the circle, you're only going to go so far in your career. I need to be honest. Okay, that's why I wanted to meet with you now, so that we could fix this together. I'm not saying this to offend you, judge you, hurt your feelings or anything, but your peers tend to avoid you. They use words sometimes I've heard confrontational, aggressive, condescending. And Paul, I've seen it myself. Does it shock you to hear that? Well, no, but I'm too busy. They're being too sensitive. No need to defend yourself right now. It's okay. We're just talking as adults. There's no judgment here, but it's important that we discuss together to see what, if anything, we can do to improve this perception problem that exists and how I can help you get there and what my expectations will be. I'd like to be the person to help you with this, the career mentor, the coach who supports you in the background while you're making your way through this. I'd like to see you fix this now so it never holds you back in your career. But you have to want it. And my thoughts are, I'm here to help you. Are you willing to take that next step in your career? It's a nice conversation to anybody. The overall lessons, keep things simple. Back of a napkin, no drama. What you want for yourself, give to another. Teach what you choose to learn. You don't have to be a master to teach mastery. If you're interested in it, give it away. The universe knows you can't give away anything that you don't already have. Help your employees become resume builders by codifying their achievements. Okay, this is important. Always keep your manager informed, right? That's your resource. Expect no less of others than you would expect of yourself and have fun. Lighten up. It's a tough world right now, but lightheartedness builds trust. And becoming a people developer is a muscle well worth owning because it will benefit you and all whose lives you touch for the rest of your career. And with that, Anjali, I'm going to turn it over to you. My contact information is here, everybody, on the slide deck. Feel free to send me a LinkedIn invite if you'd like to. I'm going to exit the share right now so we can
Yes.
go back and see if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, we have one question for you. Are you able to see your questions?
I can't see the question right now,
Okay,
no.
so I'll read it out for you.
Okay.
So this person says, I'm a human being. So as a leader, I could be angry and stressed out. And the employee should not know that. But what if that issue does come up where I have to react? Then what's the best decision and how do I not show my aggression?
Depends on how you look at it. Part of this is cultural, part of this is your own personality. If you're angry, if you're in a bad mood, I tell that to people. I'm full disclosure. I can walk in the morning and say, everybody, I didn't sleep well last night. I'm a total grouch. If you don't mind, I'm just going to go to my office and close the door because I just don't feel great right now. If you need me, come in. But overall, I need a little time. For me, that's always worked. People get it. I don't do it that often. So when they see it, they're actually okay with it. if you come from a different premise, a different sponsoring thought about people should not see if I'm angry. Again, it doesn't work with my personality, and even culturally in the United States, a lot of times I would say, I probably wouldn't, your life doesn't always have to be perfect, but it's okay. We're human beings. So even if you don't want to say that, just have a little quiet time to yourself. Close the door, put a little note on the door saying you're on a conference call. Please don't disturb. Give yourself the space. It's really hard there's so much going on. There's so much crisis in the world right now, you guys, right? Now we're all afraid of AI. There's wars on different fronts. In the United States, we've got this election coming up, which we're all worried about. There's so much noise. We've got to quiet the room. The wisdom, it's one thing to say I've got knowledge. Knowledge is important, but wisdom is a step higher. Wisdom is knowledge applied. They need to look at us as CHROs and as the HR people from a wisdom standpoint. Go to Paul. He'll give me the right perspective. He'll take me to the 30,000 foot view. He'll help me consider something that I didn't think of because he asked me about it and it came out of me. The way he asked me the question, I had the solution in me the whole time. But again, don't be afraid to show that vulnerability. I think in a way, sometimes it's better that we do because you're teaching your employees that it's okay to be human. So just food for consideration, food for thought. But I understand your question. It's a valid question. And today it's needed more than ever. So great question, but find what works best for you under those circumstances.
Yeah, it makes you more human when you do that. You allow the person to, yes, I agree.
I agree,
There's another question for you.
Please.
How do you balance employee leadership and management leadership? HR is said to be based on for employees. So how do you manage that?
It's both. It's management and leadership. And Anjali, it's always that same question. Where's the balance in there? It's like, when am I telling people what to do versus when am I sitting with them and saying, I know you don't know, but if you did know, what would your answer be? Right. And I think the idea for me is this. Everyone, when you're on the shop floor and you're working day to day on different operational things, it's normal that you're going to give people answers. I'm not saying everything should be coaching, but when you're having that one-on-one with your employee during the week, when you're having that quarterly meeting to talk about their career and professional development, their performance, their goals, their needs, their training, whatever, that's when you have these golden opportunities, these windows to talk more about them. And when people feel like just asking the question, Paul, tell me, are you doing okay? Is there anything you need? Is there anything I can help with? That makes all the difference, because even if I say, no, I'm fine, thank you for asking, Anjali, but I'm cool. But the reality is, but you cared enough to ask, and they want to work for a management team that cares about them personally. That's how it shows itself. It's that simple.
Yeah, very true. Very true. Thank you so much for that insightful session. I've got a lot to take home from. I think the leaders seated here really had a lot of pointers to take in. For me, I think people need to, what you said about how people will never forget the way you make them feel. I think that goes both ways, personally and in the office. I think that's a beautiful point. Thank you so much. Amazing session.
Thank you, Anjali. My pleasure. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the conference, and thank you for sitting in and waiting to my last session. I really appreciate that you did that.
So here we wrap up the 3-day conference. And I want to take a moment to thank everybody who has made this possible. Our special speakers who have given their time and their effort to make us feel learned on these topics. To all our participants for staying up for these 3 days with us and being engaged and active for these 3 days. This has really helped the sessions be very interactive. Thank you for that. A special thank you to our incredible team behind the scenes. There are quite a few of them, the tech team, the coordinators, the volunteers. A big shout out to you guys. This has made this a real success. We couldn't have done it without each of you here. Thank you once again. We hope to see you all in the future of our sessions. There will be a feedback poll. Please do sign in. We'd like to actually know from you how we've done. Thank you so much. This is Anjali Joseph Martin signing off for this year's conference, Global People Ops Pulse 2024. Thank you so much, Paul.
Bye, everybody. My pleasure.
Good day.